We are back. Another edition of Colts Corner with myself, Kevin Bowen. Eddie Garrison is with me. We're recording this Thursday morning, May 29th, recapping our first 11-on-11 look at the 2025 Indianapolis Colts. We will also, a little bit later on the podcast, play an interview with Chuck Pagano. His relationship with Jim Irsay, I think, pretty well documented, but really appreciate Chuck joining us earlier this week, early in the morning. He's, of course, back on that Baltimore Ravens staff and, shared some stories about his time here with Jim and, of course, that relationship that has still been very close over the years with the Chuck Strong Gala raising over $15 million for cancer research at the IU Simon Cancer Center. Obviously, last week we had the podcast focus on Jim Irsay, and today I know we maybe have a Twitter question or two that we'll get back onto that convo, but we'll probably primarily focus on that first OTA. Eddie, how you doing, man?
You know what? I'm doing just fine. Last week, Fever and Pacers alternating days from Tuesday to Sunday, the race Sunday. I needed a much-needed recovery day on Monday, but we're back on that grind again. Yeah,
it was funny. I did a Sirius XM segment on Saturday evening, and the host, when she brought me in, she goes, "Let's head to the sports epicenter," or maybe it was just kind of sports center of the universe right now. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it is that. It
was arguably the biggest sports week of Indianapolis history, right?
Certainly. So I get the old recap of the first 11-on-11. Maybe doesn't resonate too much, but I know there are some people out there. And I guess before we get started, let's just throw in this caveat. And I do this every year with training camp, but I'll do it here for OTAs. It's May 28th.
Mm-hmm.
It's not full pads. The two quarterbacks took, I don't know, a dozen starting reps apiece. Yeah, this is all we have to go off of. And that's why when we get to minicamp, starting with minicamp, you watch those 3 days and then you watch, 15 training camp practices? I mean, that's 18 days in a row you get to watch practice. That is a much more of okay, let's get some answers in Sharpie, et cetera, et cetera. Yesterday I'm out there and I'm taking notes, and I might as well be taking them in mechanical pencil with my lead, breaking off every 2 minutes. It's very faint notes. I'll share what I witnessed because it's my job. But just to reiterate to everybody, at this point in the offseason, we still are only on a one OTA watch a week. So the Colts have one today, one tomorrow, and then next week we'll watch one of three. I want to say next week's OTA viewing is on Thursday, so next week's pod will be even later in the week. So just to preface all of that, Eddie Garrison, a little bit of caution flag for any concrete observations from yesterday.
If you're interested in more details of how the first day of OTAs went, go to 1075thefan.com, and it's right there on the front. Kevin, let's start here. Individual drills, you said Anthony Richardson went through all of them, and then once they broke into 7-on-7 and 11-on-11, Richardson and Jones split the starting reps?
Yeah, each of them got an 11-on-11 period with the starters. Each of them got a 7-on-7 period with the starters. If you want to go a little bit deeper, Richardson did take the first starting reps, but it sounds like this cadence, the splitting of reps within practice, that day's practice, that will be how Shane Steichen operates through these 9 team sessions here in the spring. And basically Shane's thought process with that is, some days, Eddie, it's a first down day. Some days it's a third down day. Some days it's a red zone day. They want to make sure that both of them get the starting work in with, each of those respective days of focus, if you will. Some days you've seen coaches operate with that. No, today's the Minshew day. Today's the Richardson day. Things like that. So it sounds like about 170 reps over these 9 practices, but that will be the cadence. I'll start with Richardson. He definitely had a little bit more of an erratic nature to him in the individual period. That's pretty much par for the course in what I've seen, from him over the years. I thought his 7-on-7 period to start practice was one of the better ones I've ever seen from him. He was 6 of 6. He had some second, third level balls to Tyler Warren on a crosser, to Will Mallory over the shoulder that were picture perfect in terms of in stride and, the typical velocity you'd expect from him. The day definitely got rockier from there. I think he was 1 of 2 with the ball batted down in his first 11-on-11. His next 7-on-7, I think he was 2 of 6. Liam Anderson, a linebacker that, again, some of these linebackers are getting meaningful reps. He picked him off. He just kind of cut underneath the crossing route. He did have a couple drops. A.D. Mitchell dropped a surefire chunk play. Jelani Woods dropped a surefire chunk play as well. So all in all, I believe I had Richardson. I want to say it was like 8 of 14, or no, maybe 8 of 12. I'd have to double check my math. I think 8 of 12 and 2 of 4.
8 of 14.
8 of 14 and 2 of 4 in the periods there. So that was Richardson. I thought Jones in general was just steadier. His lone incompletion the entire day was what probably should have been an interception. Samuel Womack wasn't able to secure it. But yeah, very steady, very in rhythm, very what you would think of a 70 start guy and a non-full padded, no pass rush type of day from him. So, no drops from anybody with Jones. I'm trying to think what else kind of stood out to him. He definitely, I don't want to act like he was like totally dink and dunk, but of the two, I would say like the depth of yards, Richardson pushed it down the field more than Jones did, but certainly the more consistent, the steadier quarterback, without question, was Daniel Jones on day one.
Consistency is the word that they're looking for. With days like yesterday, from your perspective, does it kind of cater towards Daniel Jones with how he wants to play quarterback versus Richardson?
Yeah, I mean, if you were asking me, Eddie Garrison, who was the more consistent quarterback on May 28th in the Colts' first OTA session, it was Jones. And that is the question the Colts are going to have to answer for themselves of like, you walked away from the Matt Ryan Grand Park experience and you said Matt Ryan was consistent. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? How much of the dink and dunk are you willing to accept? There seems to be a little bit of a thought, I think, with the Colts organizationally of like, yeah, we're going to go back to that. Like, at least Daniel Jones can run, unlike Matt Ryan. And we have a prime running back in Jonathan Taylor still. We feel like our wideout core is better. Tyler Warren, I thought, was one of the better individual players. He probably was the best individual player on the field yesterday. No matter who the quarterback was, Warren was very effective and not just dink and dunking it. Our defense has been changed. It almost feels like that. And again, we'll see how Richardson continues to grow from it. It's probably a reminder this is the first 11-on-11 practice he's had since his first healthy offseason. So up and down day from him. Great start, rockier finish. Jones a little bit steadier from day one.
One of the positional battles that we'll be monitoring during training camp outside of quarterback is the guy that'll be snapping the ball to said quarterback. Tanner Bortolini, Danny Pinter. How did that all look yesterday?
Yeah, Bortolini, I think, got all the starting reps. I need to probably make sure that I focus in on that next week, make sure they're not flip-flopping within practice. But, him versus Danny Pinter, it was Bortolini, definitely as the starter. Matt Gonzalez at right guard. No Jonathan Taylor yesterday. He's down in Florida doing some training, it sounds like. They're hoping he will get back. Just a reminder, this is voluntary right now. Taylor has been in the building at different parts of the offseason. Defensively, your starting linebackers were Shaguna Luby and Cameron McGrone without Zaire Franklin and Jalen Carlisle. I'm trying to think. D-line, Latu. I think it was Latu and Pay as your ends there. Obviously, Ebicom, still coming along. And Charvarius Ward, just individual drills for him. They said he had spent some time away with his family, getting reintegrated into the team portion of it.
I guess one little minor note, officially on the record now. Shane Steichen told you guys that the Colts will have joint practices at Grand Park with the Packers in August.
Yeah, and nothing confirmed on dates, but if the Colts follow the same training camp cadence they have in years past, Eddie, with these joint days, Colts-Packers preseason game is August 16th. Mm-hmm. That's a Saturday. So if the same schedule applies, I would look for August 13th and 14th. That is a Wednesday and Thursday for the joint days, and I feel like they've kind of transitioned to having those practices at night. So that would be the other thing to keep an eye on. John Harbaugh said yesterday the Colts will come to Baltimore for joint, we'll see how many joint practices, with the Ravens. So if you're planning your summer schedule, I would think the Colts would be pretty light at Grand Park, like August 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, for sure, maybe even the 4th. So very light there because they are at Baltimore August 7th for their first preseason game. And we'll see if they go down to Cincinnati early with the Bengals. I mean, they could join it up all 3 of these weeks. The preseason game with the Bengals, sorry to schedule everybody here, but August 23rd, that's the preseason finale. That's a Saturday. They could go, whatever, August 20th, 21st. They could do that early down in Cincy. So heavy joint practices, no real surprise there. One thing I will add, just going back to Tyler Warren for a second, he just moves different, man. He just, and I think the Colts have some athletic tight ends, but he just moves differently. And I thought he had a really, really strong day yesterday. So yeah, he individually, I thought he probably stood out the most.
All right, Kev, it's going to be the question. I'll probably ask you a time or two. Is it Tyler Warren, or is it the lack of players on the defensive side able to cover a tight end?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you don't have your linebackers, so it's a totally fair question to ask. Yeah, I the easy answer is probably a little bit of both. But, I want to make sure we give Warren credit because, I thought what stood out is, A, he was doing it with both quarterbacks, and B, it was mainly 7-on-7.
Mm-hmm.
But B, he also did it, down the field. And, that is stuff, that's kind of why you drafted him, to be able to create some of those big plays. Before we get to the Chuck Pagano interview, I do want to make sure that we go over just a little bit of, kind of a tribute standpoint of what the Colts were, did for Jim Irsay yesterday. As we record this right now, the Colts have announced a private service for Irsay coming up on Monday, public service to be announced at a later date here. But Eddie, yesterday you had a lot of staff members rocking a Irsay weightlifting shirt, a throwback picture of a man that certainly loved to lift weights a whole lot back in the day with Tom Zupanzik and company. Again, several staff members and players wore that shirt. They also handed out these pens. For those curious looking at a picture or looking for a picture, I tweeted out pictures of these little pens. It's basically a replica of the patch they will wear on the jersey here coming up in 2025. And immediately when I walked out to the indoor facility and the first music selection I heard was The Who, I thought to myself, this is going to be a very Jim Irsay playlist today, and it definitely was that at Colts practice. But, Shane Steichen was super emotional afterwards. Reggie Wayne was very emotional. I think I shared last week, for those that missed the Irsay pod, of there's 2 kind of lasting images, if you will, for me with Jim Irsay. One, the heart was as pure and genuine as anything. And that is the lasting memory, I think, for a city and for a state. My lasting memory organizationally is how much those players adored him. Again, Marvin Harrison, Dwight Freeney, Edgerrin James, all choosing him to be their Ring of Honor, their Hall of Fame presenters. You do not see that at all around the NFL. And then Reggie Wayne yesterday, who, I think deserves to be in the Hall at some point, just super emotional. Told his wideouts about the unselfish nature of Jim Irsay and shared a great story about, in 2011, Reggie thinking about leaving the Colts, and finally Irsay said, enough's enough, I'm calling Reggie. And those two negotiated the deal itself, and Reggie kind of joking after he got done, thinking, oh boy, I could have got a lot more money from you. But that, stood out to me. And several players shared stories. Kenny Moore talked about a death in the family he had a couple years ago during the season, and Irsay, provided, him some aircraft transportation to get down and back. DeForest Buckner said, last year during the ankle issue, he looked in some stem cell research down in Panama, and Irsay, hey, no problem at all. Let us know, and we can obviously fly you down for that. So, I think you're starting to hear kind of a lot of those sorts of stories from him.
And then in terms of Carly Irsay Gordon, she's taking over pretty much right as the operational side of things of the Colts ownership, and I saw that Shane Steichen had a pretty glowing remark / quote about her. Yeah,
I know we got a Twitter question about Carly, but yeah, I think football-wise, people will see it. She is heavily, involved. I think sounds like she's like meddling. I just think she's heavily listening, for lack of a better term, DeForest Buckner told the story the other day about his first meeting with the Colts after the trade was a COVID meeting, and all of a sudden on the D line, COVID Zoom meeting, there he sees Carly Ursay's picture. He's like, whoa, here's the owner in a positional meeting. You don't typically see that. Again, that was a handful of years ago. So she certainly tried to really ingrain herself to the football side of it while really overseeing all the business aspect to it. So yeah, we'll get much more, I think, into Carly here moving forward. I wouldn't expect grand changes necessarily here in the immediacy, but how she views Chris Bowden and Shane Steichen is obviously a big topic here as we get closer to the 2025 season kicking off.
Would you like to get into the Chuck Pagano? I almost say Chris Pagano for some reason. I have no idea why.
Well, Chris Bowden probably on your mind. But yes, this was Chuck Pagano with us on the Fan Morning Show with myself, Jeff Rickard, and James Boyd earlier this week.
It's obviously been a very busy May here in Indianapolis, and we've had so much fun bringing all of the action news, highlights, and talk to you. But there are also more important things, bigger things in life that take place during the month of May. And Kevin, you've been all over this, and good friend of yours, good friend of the station, and a good friend to Indianapolis has been at the forefront of a lot of those important happenings.
Yeah, and a good friend to Jim Irsay. Let's head to the Payless Liquors hotline right now. We appreciate Chuck Pagano joining us here, obviously now in Baltimore, back on that Ravens staff, and wanted to make sure when everything unfolded midway through last week, wanted to make sure if we could get Chuck's thoughts on, because not only meant a lot to him during his time here in Indy, but it's meant a lot post-coaching career here as well. Coach, good morning to you. How you doing?
Hey, good morning, KB. Guys, it's good to be on with you. I appreciate you having me.
I guess maybe go back to the hiring process, Chuck. You had such a chaotic, few days there, going back to 2011 in January of, you guys in the AFC title game and almost, made it to the Super Bowl. Next thing you know, you're interviewing here in Indianapolis. Was that your first introduction to Jim Irsay? I'm kind of curious what your first impressions were of the Colts owner.
Yeah, that was my first introduction, and yeah, it was quite the whirlwind. You go back to that AFC Championship game. If we happen to win that game, Flacco hits Lee Evans in the end zone, would look like the go-ahead scoring touchdown. A D-back from New England knocked that ball out, and then we missed a field goal to tie the game and possibly go to overtime and go, win the thing, go to the Super Bowl. And had that happen, I probably would have never gotten the opportunity, to interview, because that would have been another 2 weeks as the rules were. I don't think they wouldn't have waited. They would have, because it was strung out long enough, right? So I don't think they would have waited. But yeah, that was, you get home from that disappointing game, and then the next morning you come in and John says Indy's called. Next thing you're on a plane, and I remember Abby picking me up at the airport and driving in there, and yeah, that was the first time I got to meet and shake Jim's hand and sit down for, I think I was there 3 hours for that interview, and the first hour was just Jim and I and Ryan and Jim, doing most of the talk, and we knew Jim loved to do that, and he could share his thoughts, and which was good for me, because I wasn't prepared. I didn't spend any time, getting, you spend a lifetime, getting ready, but then all of a sudden that opportunity presents itself and it's in front of you, and you're scrambling to get together what you think is going to be necessary to go do this interview. But yeah, fascinating. What I remember back, I mean, it was kind of a blur, but it was great spending that time with him and kind of getting to know him and listen to what his vision was, for that organization. Moving forward, how the team, what he felt about the team and the guys coming back and players that, we'd have to, acquire, move on, the whole 9 yards. So, yeah, that was the beginning of a incredible incredible opportunity for me and my family, an incredible relationship built with Jim.
You say you were in there for 3 hours, Chuck. I think it might have been 2 hours and 30 minutes of Irsay talking about Lombardis and winning and things like that. But yeah. I do want to go here because obviously you have your Chuck's a Strong, gala every year. And from your perspective, obviously you went through what you went through. The team was there to support you. But when did you know, was it before the cancer, that you were like, this is someone, this owner that I can rely on or lean on and kind of bond with the rest of our lives? Like, when did you kind of know it was that close of a bond? Because what you all have is pretty unique to obviously in the way it did, but still have that mutual respect and love.
Yeah, you could tell early on just because Jim didn't have any bad days. I mean, that guy was full of energy and juice, and you could feel his passion for his family, faith, football. I had 3 daughters. Jim had 3 daughters. Getting an opportunity to meet, when I got back there to do the press conference and stuff, and getting to know Carly, Casey, and Kaylin, you could just get a sense, getting to meet everybody, in the building. It was truly, a family, type of atmosphere. It was something that, that I was used to. I grew up in a similar situation like that in a football family, and you could just tell that Jim was going to, give you whatever resources you needed, to give the team and give the staff and give us all the opportunity to win and compete for championships. And so you always hear about Hoosier hospitality, but until you lived it like I got to live it, you found out, in a short period of time, just what that meant. But Jim, like, I don't know how many guys would have actually stood by your coach, after, 4 weeks into the season, shoot, you're down at the hospital and you're going to battle cancer. But, I mean, he never wavered. Like, there's some incredible stories, about what he did, for me, during that time, and what he continues to do, or has continued to do, for so long, with just supporting, Chuck Strong. And I remember being down in the hospital, and because I went down there, nobody really knew, so we couldn't really spread the word till the following Monday because we were on that bye week. As you guys remember, I had to check into the hospital under an alias, and start the process of going through, chemo and all that kind of stuff to treat the leukemia that I had. But I remember the first time Jim coming down there, and he's like, what do you need? What don't you have? We're going to get you set up with a, TV and monitor and get film down here so you can watch the games. And they looked at the little TV in the room, and it was good. It looked fine to me, but obviously it wasn't fine for Jim because he's like, we got to get you a bigger TV, coach, a monitor so you can watch practice and watch the games. And he's like, do you have the NFL Network? And I said, I don't believe so. And, the guy's heart is big as, all of Indianapolis and Indiana, right? So the next day, everybody in the hospital had NFL Network,
as they should,
which is not a surprise, to any of us. But that's just how Jim was, and I mean, nobody loved, his family, that football team, the Colts, and the fan base and that community, more than Mr. Irsay.
Chuck, what do you remember about him bringing the game ball to you after that comeback against Green Bay?
Yeah, it was like sitting there watching a game with my wife for the first time was a nightmare. To be honest, I mean, we kicked the thing off, and she's squirming and kicking and doing whatever, and then we're down 18 at the half, and then this unbelievable comeback, and to win that game, and he said it before, And sure enough, I mean, there's a knock on the door, and there's Jim and Ryan, with the game ball. And yeah, just the three of us, just huge embrace by Jim, just start, just bawling. It was tears of joy. It was compassion. The guy was just incredible. And I just, his face, I can picture it to this day. That smile on his face, and just how proud he was of that football team getting that job done in the fashion that they got that job done, and him kind of fulfilling his promise and prophecy, if you will, about, hey, we're going to take this game ball down there, and sure enough. But it's obviously a moment that I'll never forget.
It's been so great for all of us who many of us know this, and everybody has come forward with their stories about just what a big heart this man had, in addition to being such an influential member of the community and obviously an NFL owner. As an NFL owner, and you're a football guy, your dad was a football coach, you grew up eating, breathing, living football. What was it like to have an owner that almost at your level truly understood the game and what was going on inside of it?
It was incredible. Because with every meeting and every sit down that we had with Jim, there was so much wisdom and so much insight and so many things that, I wish I knew, now what I thought I knew then, so to speak. But with every meeting, I mean, he would throw stuff out there, and believe you, everybody talked about, Jim is, he wasn't going to he let you do your job. He let you coach. He let the players play. He let you make decisions. But then, in these sit downs and these meetings, he goes, he'd just bring up certain, situations, whether it was personnel decisions, in-game decisions, tactical strategy, philosophy. It didn't matter what it was. He had so much insight and so much wisdom that there were so many occasions I just came out there going, man, I wish I would have thought of that. But then I was like, thank God I've got a guy that, at 24 years old, shoot, he was a general manager, of that football team, and took over full control, at 37 or whatever it was, and sole ownership. But I mean, it was just the conversations, the talks, and he wasn't like, hey, like Jim did it this way, Tony did it that way, you need to do this, you need to do that. It was just like, hey, maybe think about this in this situation, maybe think, and when I came back, remember, I got out of the hospital, I was finishing up treatment at home, and I had a chance to go to the stadium, and I wasn't supposed to go in certain spots, but I went down that day and got to spend some time with Jim in his box, watching part of a game, and man, like his passion and what he knew was coming before it happened, and I mean, he lived and died with every snap of every single game with that team.
There's no that voice. That is Chuck Pagano with us here on this Tuesday morning. I know, Coach, you're about 15 minutes away from meetings beginning with the Ravens. I know OTAs begin in earnest around the league this week. So we'll end it with this and really appreciate your time, of course. Just what will be your lasting memory of Jim Irsay?
Oh, man. I think just, he was like a brother. He was like a father. He was like everything that I needed in every situation, good times and bad times. But we say we always play and coach for moments, and we shared some unbelievable moments together. Just those moments, KB. The phone call when he called me after I went and interviewed, and I thought after 3 hours, there's no chance in hell I'm getting this job. And then to get a phone call where he offers me that job. Him bringing that game ball down, him supporting me through that first year, me and my family, and doing everything under the sun to make sure we had everything that we needed. But just the man that he was, the father that he was to those girls, and just his love and passion for the game, for his family, and trying to put. Nobody has any idea how generous and how giving. Everybody knows what he's done for the Chuck Strong movement, but the behind the scenes stuff, the players, the former coaches, people that he's helped, that nobody has any idea. Just how generous this guy was, just how big of heart that he had, and it just his brilliance on so many different levels.
Coach, we can't thank you enough. I know it's certainly been quite a handful of days for you, and I know it's busy right now with your current job. So wish it was under different circumstances, but thanks for sharing those memories with us here on this Tuesday morning.
Appreciate you guys.
Again, thank you to Chuck. Great storyteller. The old NFL Network now on all the hospital TVs was certainly a funny story to hear from Chuck. So that relationship between Jim Irsay and Chuck Pagano, very well documented. Chuck, I thanked him after that interview, and just making time for us. Again, he's on a pretty tight schedule there in Baltimore here with the mornings, and they've begun their OTAs. And Chuck sent me back this. I don't think he'd mind sharing. He just goes, hard to find words to properly express just how much I loved and respected Jim Irsay. So again, thank you to Chuck Pagano for that. All right, Eddie, should we transition to Twitter time?
We shall. Of course, Chuck Pagano also coined the nickname Wet Blanket Bowen, right?
Yes, he did call me Wet Blanket for one of my more horrific takes of calling the Pascal Siakam trade lukewarm. Is lukewarm better than warm, or is it worse than warm?
It's warm. It's worse than that. It's like drinking warm milk.
Well, yeah, no one wants to drink warm milk.
No.
Like when you say it's a lukewarm bath, is that below warm or is that above warm?
That's below.
Is it?
It's like barely warm.
Yeah.
You're just out of cold.
Yeah, that was certainly not a strong take for me at all.
Only 3 questions, starting with Benji. And Benji has a couple within the submission here. Number 1, as sad as I am about Jim Irsay's passing, I'm excited for the next chapter of the Indianapolis Colts. What kind of owner should we as fans expect to see in Carly Irsay-Gordon?
It's a great question. Obviously, there's a big unknown to it. I would say in her business ownership years, and I largely think she's run the day-to-day operations businessly for, I would say the past, 10 years, maybe even longer than that. I think she's overhauled a lot. I can point to the ticketing, sales, certainly digital-wise, they've really transformed that aspect to it. There are a lot. And I don't think she walked in there with an ironclad fist and said, done, 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 done. I think she took inventory, she watched it develop and thought, hey, I need to make some changes. They have a chief marketing officer that wasn't always there, prior to that. So who knows? At some point, could she hire a president of football operations? Some teams have that, kind of above the GM. I don't know. Maybe she views herself in that light, like her dad did. So we're going to learn a lot, and I do believe she likes Chris Ballard a whole lot. But does she look at that regime as a hot seat? Does she want that on her plate right away? I think there are some people out there that look at it, Eddie, and say, if Jim Irsay sadly wasn't in the health situation he was in, would the Colts have made a move with their pairing right now, or at least in Ballard's case? So those are questions that at some point, if and when Carly does speak, they will definitely be top of mind.
The other question from Benji. In your recent episode, you alluded to a question Benji had asked previously about the cards stacked against AR. Could you elaborate more? Do you think there are expectations among the staff for Daniel Jones to win the job?
Boy, I'd have to think back. Do you remember what I said? Stacked against him?
I think it was more so in the aspect of, like we were just talking about earlier in the pod, just like the overall consistency of like how things would look in training camp and how it favors Daniel Jones more so than Richardson.
Yeah, I guess I'll go here.
And additionally, that you can't really allow Richardson to be Richardson in training camp because you're not out there and he's not going to scramble. He's not going to run around.
Yeah, Daniel Jones should look better right now, I guess, is like the aspect to it for, I guess, multiple reasons here. I just feel like there's a little part of me, Eddie, that thinks the staff has changed their tune. They've gone away from the, nope, we need to create big plays. Nope, we need the guy that can, get us out of whatever, 3rd and 10s with the ability to scramble, or, he can flash the big arm to Alec Pierce down the field. It almost seems like they've gotten away from a little bit of that, and they're saying, if he can't hit enough singles for us, we're not putting him in the lineup. We'll put Daniel Jones in the lineup, and who knows, maybe he's a 280 hitter and slapping it the other way and not going to hit for power, but I'd rather have an 8-hole hitter than a 3-hole. Why is it always the baseball analogies for me?
I don't know.
I'm not even like that big of a baseball fan. It's like, just don't cough it up at quarterback, if you will. We've got Jonathan Taylor. We've got an ascending wideout group. We've got Tyler Warren. We've changed the defense. We just need steadiness from quarterback. And, again, Richardson will have a chance to prove that, but it seems like the staff is a little bit more open-minded. And that's probably a different tune from me than I sung 4 months ago, or I guess not 4 months ago, whenever Jones was signed. But, when Steichen kept on saying the word consistent, it's hard for me to walk away from. So here it begins, and Richardson will have a chance to prove himself. And, yesterday was, yesterday was 1% of the 100% of evaluation periods we're going to get here throughout the offseason. But, yesterday was this is a little bit more consistent for Richardson, or for Jones, than it was Richardson.
We're not even through the 2025 season yet, and we're already getting questions about the Colts roster in 2026 from Jamie. From most to least likely, which of these 3 players will not be on the roster in 2026? Zaire Franklin, Kenny Moore, or Jonathan Taylor?
Oh, boy. Well, they're all under contract, right?
Yes, but they have, I think all 3 have outs. I know for sure.
Right.
Taylor and Kenny do.
Yeah, that would make sense. I mean, Zaire, I'm sure, as well, considering it's a second contract for him. Hell, it might even be a 3rd contract for him. That's a great question. Zaire Franklin, Kenny Moore, Jonathan Taylor. Boy, running backs, you obviously never know. So that makes me pause with Taylor, albeit he's still the most in his prime, I would say, of those 3. I would honestly say Kenny has the most obvious replacement on the roster, if you feel like Justin Wally can be that. And again, Justin Wally was a 4-year starter in the Big Ten, so I don't think you're expecting a ton of growth necessary for him. Boy, that is a really good question. I am very torn on that. Can I ask you first and continue to think about it?
I'd probably lean more towards Taylor than any.
Taylor would be not with the Colts.
Yes.
Okay. And any sort of thought there on why he gets hurt again?
There's that. There's the, as you've documented, the total of carries are increasing, and
sure,
he's getting closer to age 30. It saves you $13 million on the cap if you wanted to do that, if you wanted to play that card. And they just drafted DJ Giddens. Like, is DJ Giddens the replacement from Taylor? Is he kind of like Marlon Mack?
I mean, my answer would be all 3 are back. I know that's not what Jamie's asking, so I do need to answer Jamie's specific question. I would say all 3 are back. But most to least likely, I'll go Kenny, Zaire, Taylor. And you know why?
Why is that?
It's the presence of a new defensive coordinator. Does
That's
he just look at personnel and say, nope, those aren't my guys. Justin Wally is my guy. Now, again, linebacker, he didn't really do anything. Mm-hmm. So it's a little harder to say with that. But it's a great question, Jamie, one that I clearly am stumped on.
All right. I don't think we've talked about this guy in forever. Maybe we did. It was on a couple pods ago because he was playing in the American Football League or the United Football League or whatever that hell that league is.
Boy.
This is from Randall.
We're stretching here to end the pod.
I reach out today in regards to Rodrigo Blankenship. I think we should bring Hot Rod back to compete for the job against Spencer Schrader. Is this a crazy notion? Hot Rod is killing it in the UFL. Thank you, Randall, for the clarification on which league that was. For the St. Louis Battlehawks, hitting consistently from over 50 yards. What are your thoughts?
Boy, is he really? Can't say I'm up on the UFL or the USFL, whatever the hell it's called, St. Louis Battlehawks here. Didn't the Lions kicker, isn't that where they found him? Jake Bates?
Yes.
Wasn't he like tearing it up for the Detroit team? Yeah, do you find it interesting at all that the kicker battles like doesn't include a veteran? Schrader, undrafted, barely kicked in the league last year, and then Maddox, Trujillo, undrafted. Both undrafted guys, but 1 year apart. You know, oftentimes in these competitions, I think you see veteran versus young.
Yeah.
They haven't. They're not doing that. Now they like the big leg for both of them and think they can kind of correct some of the other stuff that maybe their college percentages weren't too eye popping. Every time I think back to Hot Rod, obviously I think of Legos. Certainly I think of Rex Specs. I think of how much of a social media star he was at Georgia and seemingly still was here. I just feel like they should have kept Chase McLaughlin. And I think past history would show that I said that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I thought Chase McLaughlin just kind of got the short end of the stick. And it's not like I understand where they're coming from on Spencer Schrader. They're like booming leg, soccer background, uber athletic. We can make him more consistent, but you can't teach the leg. With Hot Rod, I just never felt like it was there from a distance standpoint. Do you not want famous off the field with kicker either?
What do you mean?
I mean, on the kicker famous meter, Hot Rod's pretty famous, right?
Is he?
I mean, I feel like he is still kind of famous. Like if the Colts sign tomorrow Cairo Santos, or if they sign tomorrow Hot Rod, national podcasts are more going to say, hey, Hot Rod's back in the NFL, versus they're going to say, oh, Cairo Santos is kicking for his 37th NFL team.
I don't know. Does he move the needle? Does Hot Rod really move the needle that much?
I mean, in kicker fame, I think he does. To answer the question, I'd opt for some other veteran at this point, but this is what they're going with, and we'll see how well. I mean, they love Spencer Schrader. Love. So,
like you love Matty Bowen?
Well, gosh, can you imagine if Matty heard that an NFL team loves a kicker who's, kicked 5 field goals in the NFL as much as my love for her? No, I'm not going to let you pin me there. No, not at all. Stop it. We should probably end this.
Pacers winning it tonight, KB?
Yeah, Pacers in 5.
You were on that from the start.
I was.
And I thought you were a little crazy.
No. Pacers in 5. I think look, Karl Anthony Towns looked like me waking up Monday after the Indy 500. He was favoring that knee big time. Would you rather? Let's end with this, Eddie.
Okay.
As a fan,
okay,
would you rather see the Pacers get it done tonight in Madison Square Garden, or be in the building Saturday and watch them clinch a spot in the NBA Finals with you in attendance?
Oof.
What would you rather have? Play the risk game? It's either 5 days off or 7 days off if you want to get into the rest time. Would you rather play the risk game, have confidence in your team winning at home? Hell, when's the last time they've lost 2 in a row? It's been months.
Since St. Patty's Day, they haven't.
There you go. Would you rather believe in that, get it done at home, party on Georgia Street afterwards? Hell, you might storm the floor. You and John Halliburton can storm the floor together. Would you rather do that in your own building, or watch Knicks fans suffer tonight and get a full week of rest?
Now, is it guaranteed that they win Game 6?
No. Nope, not guaranteed.
I'm in the boat of
you got to play with fire.
Win it. Get the win now. Get those extra couple days of rest, because this series has been really physical and demanding emotionally and mentally. So I'm in the mindset of go into Boston, rip their hearts out, end their season again at home, and then get ready for the best team in the NBA.
You're a sick fan. You got issues.
You don't like the pettiness?
Sounds like me with Notre Dame, honestly. He's Eddie Garrison. I'm Kevin Bowen. Thank you for listening to Colts Corner with Kevin Bowen. Just a reminder, this will be a later pod next week. Again, Thursday is our OTA viewing for the Colts coming up next week. Eddie, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Talk to you next week.
Later.